Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Pointy Not Sharp. Today we're taking a look at a combat knife. Now this here is the KCB 77LCS. It's got quite a long name, and to break it down, KCB stands for Knife Cutter Bayonet. 77 is the year that the original shorter version was developed. L is for long and CS is for combat knife or fighting knife. Now this is the fighting knife version of the KCB 77 long bayonet, which is essentially the same as what we have here, except obviously muzzle ring, and it takes a bayonet lug, has the claws like on the M7 bayonet. And the KCB 77 long, from what I've read, was developed to go with the Galil. However, because not a terrible lot of those rifles were made, because I think the US ended up supplying Israel with a butt ton of M16s, they sort of discontinued these. Now, this one here is actually commercial. So in the 1990s, AES, I can't remember exactly what the name stands for, they're one of the companies that came from Econ. So Econ collapsed, I think it was, or was bought out or something like that in the 70s or 80s, I can't really remember. And a whole bunch of other companies have spawned from them and started using their name, and it's a little bit confusing. I'll get into that in another video when I do the actual KCB 77, the proper bayonet, the short version. But because this is just a commercial fighting knife, I'm just going to go over the construction really, because there's not much history other than they had a bayonet that was similar to this and they turned it into a fighting knife. What I can say is the original KCB 77 was developed for Stoner's rifle in the 60s and 70s. This is what I've heard, I can't confirm it, and it was initially designed for the Navy SEALs. Whether or not they used it, I don't know. And it was pretty much a direct copy of the AK-style bayonets that the Soviets and Warsaw Pact were using. When I pull this out, you'll see it. So we've got the same blade profile. We've got a sawback on the back of the blade. Discount the fact that this is the long version. If this was the short version, they would pretty much be the same length. The major difference is the fact that the muzzle ring on the AK blades, so the blade faces up on the AKs, whether on the KCB 77s, the blade face down. Other than that, they are extraordinarily similar. I mean, you've got the same wire cutter mechanism, same sawback, same blade profile. Very much inspired by the AK bayonets. But we'll jump into the actual construction. So I pretty much covered most of the construction of the blade just there, and we've got a really nice clip-pointed tip here that is razor, like that's really sharp, really pointy. The ramp here, it's not a false edge, I'd call it more of a ramp, is not sharpened. And then we have the hole for the wire cutter mechanism. The blade running down the true length is quite sharp actually, so I don't want to touch that too much. And then we have this really long sawback running down the full length. I believe these were introduced in like the late 80s, early 90s for the commercial market, and I don't know they sold a terrible lot, so they're quite hard to find these days. I was lucky enough to get this one from a collector who's moving his collection on. Now, the video doesn't show it too well, but there's a bit of a plum hue to the blade, and that's a really rich blue that we saw a lot on the German blades in the 70s and 80s, or more the 80s, where they turned bright red with time. And this one's only a bit plum, starting to go a bit red. I don't think it's going to go any redder than this, but it's quite a nice colour. I like it. Then moving down to the crossguard, nothing much to see. Just bends down a little bit to protect the fingers, which I like quite a lot. I've read too many accounts of someone stabbing a tree or an enemy soldier or anything, even crime related, and the knife just slipping through their fingers and slicing all their fingers up when they encounter bone or something with a lot of resistance. Now the handle is pretty boxy. It's ribbed. It's got a plastic screw that you need a special tool for, which I don't have, to disassemble it. And just go through the other side there. And nothing on the base of the pommel. So extremely simple. There's not a terrible lot to say about it. The scabbard's really cool. I like the scabbard. So I've got a nice long polymer scabbard with a metal locket up here. This strap here is a leg strap, so I'll untie that. Essentially, this ties around your legs so that when you're going for a run with this thing fitted to your belt, it's not flapping around everywhere. Reduces noise, I guess. But the real business end of the scabbard is down here. We've got our wire cutter mechanism, and we've also got a flathead screwdriver. So I showed you how the wire cutter works with the AK, but I'll show you again. Just slots through the hole, place your wire in the little hole there, and give it a cut. And what's fantastic about the long version, as opposed to the short, is just the amount of leverage that you have to cut wire. Like, that feels a lot more effective. Other than that, we've just got standard frog, got an American wire hanger on it, got a belt loop and hilt strap, so the same as probably half the frogs that were developed in like the 80s and 90s. Nothing really too interesting to see there. Now, in terms of markings, these don't have any markings. You will come across a couple that have Germany written on the ricasso in white paint. That's very flaky and comes straight off if you rub it. That's an importation mark, and I'm uncertain if that was only for the US or if that was for other countries too. This one here came out of Hong Kong, so if I don't know if it originally had an import mark or not, but if it did, it's long gone. I've also been told you find the import markings on the scabbards, but I haven't found a good photo, and this one here certainly doesn't have it. Now, considering the length of it, it's not too heavy. It's probably a bit bigger and bulkier than I really would have wanted during my time in the army. It's sort of that awkward length where it's not quite a knife and it's not quite a machete, and it sort of does neither terribly well. So I don't know what you do with it. Like, it's too long to sort of use as a little utility knife, and it's too short and too light to use as a machete. In the bayonet form, I imagine it would have been fantastic because the points on these are fantastic. But yeah, I don't know how practical these were. The saw on the back would have been quite handy. I can see that being very useful. But my own personal preference, I like a short utility knife, something small and a bit more practical, takes up less space, not as heavy. But I was a paratrooper and we had to carry everything with us, and we were carrying up to 50, 60 kilos at times. It was an insane amount of weight, and if you can cut weight anywhere, you would, and there's no need to carry something big like this. It's really unnecessary. But I really like it. It's one of my favourites. It's staying in my collection. I'm never going to sell it, so don't go checking eBay for it because it's not going to be there. Anyway, guys, if I've left anything out, please feel free to comment below. Love to hear from you, and thanks for watching.